illustrious and eminent Dr. Selvamurthy, who happens to be the Vice President of the Amity Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies. I will not talk about him just now because there is a lot to be spoken about this very eminent luminary personality of a country. We also have today on the panelists Professor Dr. Yoga Jyotsna, who happens to be the head of institute and the Dean of Defense and Strategic Study. Welcome, Lord, Your Lordship, Lord Memoria, Dr. Karun sir. Hearty welcome to you.
Welcome.
And
thank you.
So very welcome, His Excellency Lord Karan Beloria.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Doctor, and thank you, General. Thank you, Professor. Delighted to be with you. I'm sorry about my slightly delayed arrival, and looking forward very much to the session today.
A great delight, sir, that you are here. What a pleasure, sir. Great honor and great privilege to have you, sir.
My privilege, thank you.
And having spared your time, especially during this pandemic environment.
Yeah, please go ahead, General Gadiuk, you can start.
Should we start, sir?
Yeah, please.
Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We from the Amity Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, Amity University, Noida, welcome the panelists and all of you, the very august audience, to this 11th online lecture in the series of academic and research talks, which has been organized by us in concert with the Amity Institute of International Studies, Social Studies, Public Policy, and Amity Indian Military College for Women, which was just inaugurated last year, and many other institutes and departments of the Amity University. Firstly, a very hearty welcome to Lord Bellamoria, Order of the British Empire, Chancellor, Birmingham University, and Independent Peer, House of the Lords, United Kingdom. Today, I take it as a matter of privilege and great pride to also extend a very benign welcome to our Honorable Founder President, Dr. Ashok K. Chauhan, Amity Education Group and Global Educationist, founder of the world-class Temple of Higher Learning and microcosm of youth leadership. Our very esteemed Dr. Atul Chauhanji, Chancellor of Amity University, UP, graduate of the London School of Economics. Also esteemed Dr. Asim Chauhanji, Chancellor of Amity University, Manasa, graduate of Wharton University, United States, America. Respected Vice Chancellor and the Amity University, Uttar Pradesh, Dr. Bhavinder Shukla, as also distinguished heads of institutions, deans, eminent faculty, former illustrious governors, former chiefs, dignitaries, senior officers of the armed forces, and student fraternity. I will just take a brief glimpse and cognize you with the career and distinguished life of His Lordship, Lord Karan Bellamoria, Order of the British Empire. He has been the founder of Cobra Beer, the chairman of Cobra Beer Partnership Limited, and so far, since 2001, have been awarded 110 medals. He is the founding chairman of United Kingdom India Business Council, the former Chancellor of Thames Valley University. 2006, he was also appointed Lord Bellamoria of Chelsea. In 2008, he was awarded the Pravasi Bharati Samman by the President of India. He was chairman, advisory board of the JBS Cambridge University. Also been an alumnus of Cranfield School of Management, the London Business School, and also the Harvard Business School. In 2017, the 7th Chancellor of Birmingham University, and also the President of United Kingdom Council for International Student Affairs. Since 2017, His Lordship is Bingham Tudor Fellow at Kellogg College, Oxford University. He has been the Honorary Group Captain in the 601 Royal Air Force Squadron, United Kingdom. In 2020, he he was appointed the President of the Confederation of the British Industry. Lord Bilimoria hails from Hyderabad, where he was born in November 1961. He comes from Parsi parentage, the son of General Bilimoria, who was the former army commander and also the commandant of the Defense Services Staff College, Wellington, where he performed exceptionally well as a general extraordinaire. His mother, Lady Yasmin, was also a graduate from Birmingham University, United Kingdom. His brother Nadir, a very accomplished man, has been taking great care of the gracious lady at Dehradun. Lord Karan Bilimoria has studied at Hebron School at Ooty in Tamil Nadu, graduated Bachelor of Commerce in Honours from Osmania University, Hyderabad, and moved to London, where he did his Chartered Accountancy at Ernst & Young, and thereafter he graduated in law from Cambridge University. He's been playing horse polo and was a very vital part of the Cambridge polo team. In 2004, he was appointed the commander of the British Empire, which is a very enviable and coveted appointment. He was bestowed with 11 honorary doctorates, Entrepreneur of the Year awards from not only Ernst & Young, but I will not be able to, ladies and gentlemen, give out many other reputed organizations and industry which bestowed awards upon him. In 1993, the best thing that has happened to him was that he was married to Lady Lynn Heather Walker, South Africa national, Latin graduate from Rhodes University. They have 4 lovely children, and they all live in London. I should now say a few words about a very illustrious and our very own, the founder president, Amity Education Group, that is Dr. Ashok Chauhan. The founder president was extremely happy to learn, firstly, about this webinar when we informed him through Rear Admiral Kocha, this being held by the Amity Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, where we had invited Lord Bilimoria, despite his very busy and hectic commitments in the United Kingdom. Dr. Chauhan happens to be an extremely distinguished ethical global leader, leading luminary, a visionary and icon of emerging education system in India, who has taken unprecedented de novo initiatives in collaborative academic adventures with more than 150 universities in the world, with partnerships and modern exchange programs. It created the fountainhead of innovative research-driven intellectual capital of students, and empowering them with contemporary knowledge, as also imbibing in them sterling attributes of leadership as part of his very imaginative personality development program, and imbibing in them, once again, the Junoon for the Indian Armed Forces. The founder president has brought university to the top 3% fastest progressional universities in the world. And Amity happens to be having not only the top line eminent faculty, the instructors and scientists, but also one of the finest infrastructural facilities, a green, friendly, pedagogic culture of India. He has raised it to an enviable highest threshold of academic excellence. The founder president has won a large many national and international awards. Dr. Silvamurthy, who happens to be, ladies and gentlemen, our Vice President of the Amity Institute of Defense Strategic Studies. He is an illustrious scientist of a nation who is Amity University's President, Amity Science, Technology, Innovation Foundation, ASTIF. He is Director General of the Amity Directorate of Science, Innovation, and Chair, Professor for Life Sciences. Designated as Chancellor of the Amity University of Chhattisgarh. He has done his doctorate, a PhD Faculty of Medical Sciences from Delhi University and Doctorate of Science from Bangalore. He served with great distinction in DRDO for 40 years, and R&D contributions galore in development of life support technologies for the soldiers of the armed forces is most admirable in NBC defense technology, nanotechnology, in yoga and military physiology and psychology. It was not only a matter of great talk, but all the armed forces officers acknowledge and pay their most humble respect and regard to him. He was the first leader of the Indo-Soviet scientific expedition to the Arctic Circle for polar physiology research, and presently is a member of the Scientific Advisory Committee to the Cabinet in field of life sciences and health research. He is chairman of Program Management Board and Society of Biomedical Technology and chairman of Formulate Vision for India for Health and Medical Sciences in 2035. He was awarded with the prestigious award, National Award for S&T Innovation, the Technology for Leadership Award, and Lifetime Achievement Award by the President of India, and many more laurels. I can just go on and on. A word now about the head of institution and the Dean of Amity Institute of Defense and Strategic Studies, and that happens to be Our Lady Madonna, that is Professor Dr. Yoga Jyotsna, who is the head of institution and the Dean of AIDSS. She is also the Dean of the Amity Institute of International Studies, the Amity Institute of Social Sciences, and that of the Public Policy and Governance, and also the Amity Indian Military College for Women. A very accomplished, charismatic lady, a defense analyst, strategist, who joined us from Osmania University with an extraordinary academic record and teaching experience of 38 years. Ladies and gentlemen, I would now like to request His Lordship, Dr. Karan Vilumoria, to kindly take on the proceedings and start with the webinar, please.
Thank you very much, General. I've had the privilege of knowing General Gadiuk extremely well, a very, very close friend of our family. And my parents, I've known his parents for many years. He, like my father, served as ADC to the President of India as young officers. And like my father, he was Commandant of the Defense Services Staff College in Wellington. To deliver a lecture when, can you hear me, by the way? Can you all hear me? Yes. To deliver a lecture while he was Commandant. And it's a great privilege to be with all of you at Amity University, a university that has done exceedingly well over the past years and established itself as a leading university in India with international links. And I know that personally as the Chancellor of the University of Birmingham, how we collaborate very closely with Amity University. In fact, recently, General Gadiuk arranged some lectures with our professors, which was a great success from everything that I've heard. And Dr. Salvamurthy and Professor Yoga Jyotsna, it's a privilege to be with both of you as well, such respected and illustrious academics and experts in your fields from a global level. And Professor Jyotsna, you come from Osmania University, where I did my first degree before I came to study in the United Kingdom. And of course, I'm a very proud Hyderabadi, born in Hyderabad, and I visit Hyderabad regularly to this day. So I am of Indian origin, born and brought up in India until the age of 19, and then I've been here in the UK. And I'm one of the 30 million people of Indian origin around the world. And at one stage, we were looked upon as deserters of the motherland and the brain drain. But since 2003, when the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas was instituted, India's attitude to people like me around the world is no longer a drain, but a gain. And I'm very proud of the accomplishments and achievements of the Indian diaspora around the world. We are one of the most successful communities worldwide, reaching the very top in just about every field. And I see that for myself here in the UK. In Parliament today, yesterday, I was at a meeting in my role as President of the CBI with Alok Sharma, who is the equivalent of the Indian Commerce and Industry Minister, the Cabinet Minister for Business, and of Indian origin, like me, a chartered accountant. And it was just so wonderful to be there at his department, in his office, with a cabinet minister of Indian origin, and I being the first president of the Confederation of British Industry, the equivalent of the CII in India, the first person of ethnic minority origin, first Indian to hold that position. And there we were sitting across the table, leading British industry. And likewise, our Home Secretary, Priti Patel, is of Indian origin, and our Chancellor of the Exchequer, our Finance Minister, Rishi Sunak, is also of Indian origin. So there we are, 3 cabinet ministers, senior cabinet ministers, the President of the CBI, and in Parliament now, there are several Indians, both in the House of Lords, along with me, as well as in the House of Commons. So it's amazing how well we've done. And of course, as a Zoroastrian Parsi, it gives me great pride that going back to 1892, the first Indian Member of Parliament in Westminster was Dadabhai Naoroji, and the grand old man of India, who Mahatma Gandhi used to look up to and was a mentor to Mahatma Gandhi, followed by Samancha Chipanagri, also Parsi, followed by Shapoorji Saklatwala, also Parsi, and there was one Indian peer, Lord Sinha, a hereditary peer. So there was the only 4 Indian parliamentarians in Britain before India's independence. And then it took to 1987 when we got a next Indian parliamentarian in the House of Commons. In the House of Lords, there was Lord Chitnis, who was appointed, who was with my mother at Birmingham University, a contemporary of hers. So there were 1 in the 70s, 2 in the 80s, and now there's several of us. So I'm very, very privileged to be in that position. What I would like to share with you as somebody who straddles both countries, they say you can leave India, but India never leaves you. So I'm extremely proud Indian, as well as being a proud UK citizen. That the 2 countries I've always seen as having a very special relationship. Of course, it's a relationship that goes back for centuries. And where we are today, we are 2 countries of differing sizes. So the UK makes up 1% of the world's population, with a population of about 66 million people. And India is the 2nd highest populated country in the world, with a population of 1.3 billion people. And yet today, now, as we stand, India is the 5th largest economy in the world in absolute terms, and the UK is the 6th largest economy in the world in absolute terms. So India has overtaken the UK as the 5th largest economy in the world. So that's where we stand right now. You've got America, China, Japan, Germany, India, and the UK. So where do we stand in the world? Where's the world changed from the days of the Cold War, where you had 2 superpowers, the USSR and USA, and there was a standoff, and you're on one side or the other, and that persisted for many years after the Second World War. And if we step back again with globalization, as General Gadiok in his very kind introduction mentioned that I'm an alumnus of Harvard Business School through executive education. One of our professors, Ravi Abdulal, and I will picture this graph forever in my mind. And he showed us this graph in January 2017. What is significant about January 2017 is the year before that, in 2016, Britain had voted to leave the European Union. And what had happened in 2016 was President Trump became President of the United States of America. And he showed out an analysis of how these 2 things happened, the Brexit vote and the Trump vote. And the fault lines were very, very similar of how and who voted for this Brexit and for Trump. And then he showed us a graph of globalization going back to the 1800s. And if you look back to a defining moment in history, it was in 1815, which was the Battle of Waterloo. 2 of Britain's greatest military leaders, of course, were Lord Nelson, who won the Battle of Trafalgar in 1805, and then in 1815, the Duke of Wellington. Of course, Wellington, where General Gadiok's commandant is named after the Duke of Wellington. And Duke of Wellington, as a young officer, served in India as well. He took part in the Battle of Seringapatam against the great Tipu Sultan. And the Duke of Wellington's motto was, "Fortune favors the bold, fortune favors the brave." And my daughter, older daughter Zara, attended Wellington College, built by Queen Victoria in memory of Britain's great military hero. So he defeated Napoleon. Napoleon, of course, had the ambition to conquer the whole of Europe. And he almost did it. He almost did it. And there was this amazing battle in 1815, historic battle. And I remember going to the site. I've actually been to visit the site. What people do not realize is that battle was won not just by the Duke of Wellington. It was an Allied victory. It was the Dutch helping him. But also, if Marshal Blucher, the German general, had not arrived, Wellington would have lost that battle. And it was Marshal Blucher's arrival at the right time that enabled this Allied victory to take place and Napoleon be defeated. And what happened after that in 1815 onwards is the rise of the European powers, the rise of the empires, the British Empire, in the modern world, the largest empire the world has ever known. And I always say in the modern world, because as a Zoroastrian Parsi, the biggest empire in history was the Persian Empire under Cyrus the Great. And if you go back to 539 BC, when Cyrus had his famous Cyrus Cylinder, the world's first document of human rights, at that time, 45% of humanity came under the Persian Empire that stretched all the way to Europe and included India, parts of India as well. So the British Empire, the Belgians, the Germans, the French, all these empires flourished, and the world became a very global trading world. And that was until the beginning of the 1900s. And then you had, the graph shows globalization just increasing and increasing and increasing. And then you see the First World War. This war that should never have taken place, a war that was completely unnecessary, and then lasted for 4 years. And of course, 1 million Indians volunteered and served in that war. Many gave their lives. And that war would not have been won without the contribution of the Indian Army. And of course, globalization plummeted. And then it picked up again a little bit in between the First and Second World War. And of course, the Second World War was caused by the First World War. Second World War, again, 2.5 million Indians volunteered and served in the Second World War. And I have the privilege of chairing the memorial gates near Buckingham Palace that commemorate the service and sacrifice of the 5 million individuals from South Asia, the Indian subcontinent, including Nepal, of course, and the Gurkhas, and Africa and the Caribbean that served in the First and Second World War. And in the pavilion, inside the roof, are the names of the Victoria Cross and George Cross holders. So many of them, so many of them, so many gave their lives. And 2 of those Victoria Cross holders I was privileged to grow up with from childhood, Agan Singh Rai and Gaji Gale in my father's battalion, the 2nd 5th Gurkha Rifles Frontier Force. So you have this amazing contribution. Second World War was won by the Allies. And then you see India, of course, gains its independence soon afterwards. And you see the graph of globalization then rising again. And it rises and rises and rises and rises and rises. And today, it has surpassed the level reached in the early 1900s. And what happened next? What happened next was conflict. Conflict for half a century. Destructive, horrible conflict. So if history repeats itself, we're looking at conflict facing us in the years ahead. We must not allow history to repeat itself, because the best way to predict the future is to look in the past and to learn from the past. And one of my favorite sayings in the business world, and applies to life in general, is that good judgment comes from experience, and experience comes from bad judgment. And you've got to learn from the mistakes that you've made and not repeat them again. And if you look at this in the context of the UK and India and where they sit in the global panoply today, you have the United States as a true superpower, no question about that. Arguably, it's a declining power, and that is something one can debate. Then you have the rise of China that is emerging as a superpower economically and in hard terms as well. And then you've got countries like the UK and India. And what makes the UK and India so different? Well, one thing for sure, and that is we're both democracies. The UK is the mother of all modern parliaments. Again, I say modern parliaments because the Greeks had democracy going back over 2.5 centuries. But if you talk about the modern world, going back 8 centuries when the House of Lords was created, then the House of Commons, Westminster is the mother of parliaments. And that democracy, which was uninterrupted in the UK except for Oliver Cromwell at one stage when there was a civil war, and King Charles lost that civil war and was executed, and Oliver Cromwell became the Lord Protector. He didn't make himself king. And then the monarchy was restored in 1660 when Charles II, who was in exile in Europe, came back. So we've had this amazing democracy in the UK that has been very resilient. And Parliament, and we do not have a written constitution in the UK. India has a phenomenal written constitution. The United States has a phenomenal written constitution. The UK has an unwritten constitution. It is based on precedents and conventions, and it's a very, very finely balanced and a thin thread of a balance between the executive, the government, between Parliament, and between the judiciary. And it's constantly being tested. And it was tested a lot during the Brexit period. And of course, now in January, we even left the European Union. So you have this amazing democracy. And in India, a modern democracy, it's a young country, it's only 73 years old. In the bigger picture, India is an ancient civilization, but a young country. And if you look at what's happened in India, look at the neighboring nations around India, and look at India's democracy and how resilient it has been. In India, the armed forces never have ever interfered with the government or in politics. Field Marshal Manekshaw, who was all-powerful when he created the liberation of Bangladesh, there was a fear at that time. Oh gosh, is he going to try and take over the country? Absolutely not. It was never a question. It would never even ever have happened. So that Indian democracy has been resilient. And you've seen in India, democracy works. If the people are not happy with whoever's in power, they vote for change. And you see that time and time again, a resilient democracy. And in India, a true federal system where each state has its own devolved power, where each chief minister is the prime minister of their own state and has lots of power, but yet you have this wonderful central cohesion where you have central defense, central foreign policy, central taxes and fiscal rules that make you a federal state, but yet a very coherent nation. The UK, by the way, has 4 countries: England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. It is nowhere near a federal system in the way that India is. America is a federal system in the way that India is. So we must remember these nuances and differences. But of course, the power of India, in my view, that makes it more unique than any other country in the world, is India is the most diverse country in the world in every way that you look at it. Whether it's terrain, from the jungles to the rice fields of Kerala, to the mountains of the Himalayas, to the deserts of Rajasthan, you've got it all in one country. To the people, you have different racial origins of people, from the south to the north, to the east, to the west. Some of the people even have links to Alexander the Great. Some have links to the Persians when they were here. We have a country with phenomenal racial diversity that is amazing. India also has great diversity in languages, has great diversity in religions. India is a secular country where everyone can practice their religions. All religions are celebrated. I remember one of the best things about growing up in the army is my father would be commanding at different levels. He'd be commanding Hindus, who could be Nepalese, who could be Hindus from different parts of India, Muslims, Sikhs, and Christians, and we would celebrate everybody's religious festivals. We'd go into the churches, we'd go into gurdwaras, we'd go into the mosques, we'd go into the temples. We would celebrate this diversity. And I think that diversity is a very strong point and a strong strength that a country has, because I was just reading, one of my Harvard professors wrote a paper just this week about diversity and inclusion. And people use those terms in tandem, but there's a big difference between diversity and inclusion. So you can have diversity, So as a company, you can say, well, I want to make sure I have a really diverse board, and I want to make sure I have a really diverse employees, and consciously go out looking for that, which is great. But in itself, it is not as effective if you do not make those people inclusive. And if it's a combination of diversity and inclusion together, that is powerful. So India has this enormous, enormous strength. And you can call it a hard power, you can call it a soft power of this critical mass of 1.3 billion people. This phenomenal diversity in every aspect that makes India really rich in its culture and its power intellectually in every way. The UK, on the other hand, being a small country, is still considered a global power. Why? Why is this small country still considered a global power? Over 70 years since it lost its empire, the Indian army is huge, over 1 million troops. Then you take the Central Reserve Forces, you add that, you're talking about another 1 million. The paramilitary, the Indo-Tibetan force, you add all those things, you're talking about over 2 million. And then you've got the Air Force, and then you've got the Navy. We're not even talking about the police, I'm talking about the armed forces. So India's got huge scale in its defense forces. And yet the UK defense forces, the army is now only 82,000 people. I mean, the general has commanded institutions. My father commanded a corps in the Punjab, which was more than 82,000 people. One corps before he commanded his army of 350,000 people. So you say, oh my gosh, that's too small. But what the UK has in hard power is small in numbers, but very, very good in the quality of what it does, in the technical capability of the armed forces, and very well respected. I mean, the UK Special Forces, the SAS, are respected around the world. The UK Marines are respected around the world. And the capabilities in terms of technical capabilities is very good, which is why the UK still spends 2% of GDP minimum, which is a NATO commitment, on defense every year. And this, one of the strongest elements the UK has is its nuclear deterrent. The at-sea, 24-hour, 365 days nuclear deterrent, where there is British nuclear submarines around the world. We don't know where, but they're there. And they can act with a second's notice. And that gives us huge, huge hard power that not many countries actually have. India, likewise, is a nuclear power. I remember going when my father was commanding a brigade in Rajasthan to visit as a young boy the crater where the Pokhran nuclear test that showed the world that India is now a nuclear power. I've gone there, I've seen it. India is a nuclear power. So India has that hard power, no question about it. Now that hard power, in my view, on its own, where does it sit, the context of it? Well, we're both members of the Commonwealth. The Commonwealth is 54 nations. The UK is seen as the headquarters of the Commonwealth, but hang on, over half the population of over 2.4 billion people in the Commonwealth is made up by one country, India. And you've got Australia, you've got Canada, you've got New Zealand, you've got all the Caribbean countries, African countries. And you've got these two countries at the heart of the Commonwealth, the UK and India. And I think we could do much more with the Commonwealth than we do at the moment. The UK has the advantage of being a member of NATO. And those of you who study defense know with NATO, being a member is a very powerful thing. The two most powerful countries in NATO are the United States and the UK in defense terms. But an attack on any one country of NATO is an attack on every member of NATO and will be retaliated. And that is very powerful. If you look at the countries that make up NATO globally, it's a powerful force. Just celebrated our 70th anniversary. And of course, the only time that's been used, that article, is after September the 11th, when NATO exercised that right, and what took place in Afghanistan afterwards. So the hard power, and before I conclude to go into the discussion, I want to talk about soft power, because soft power is so important. Look at the UK. Our universities, I mean, General very kindly spoke about my connections with universities and Chancellor of the University of Birmingham. Just this morning, I had a meeting with our Vice Chancellor, Professor Sir David Eastwood. We have very strong defense capabilities in the university, and which I look forward to collaborating even more with Amity. And Birmingham is one of the 4 largest universities in the UK. It's a Russell Group university, one of the Ivy League of the UK, and one of the top 100 universities in the world. Our universities in the UK are jewels in our crown. People think American universities are great. Of course they are. But which university has won more Nobel Prizes than any other university in the world? It's not Harvard. It's not MIT. It's not Caltech. It's not Stanford. It's not Yale. It's not Princeton. It's Cambridge University. Cambridge University has won 100 Nobel Prizes. And by the way, one of the recent ones is a good friend of mine, Venki Ramakrishnan, Sir Venki Ramakrishnan, who's a Nobel laureate, fellow of Trinity College, Cambridge, and the president of the Royal Society, which, as Dr. Salvamurthy knows as a scientist, is a very prestigious thing to have the letters FRS after your name. And it's an Indian, for the first time ever hitting. Isaac Newton was president of the Royal Society in his time. So we have phenomenal soft power through our universities because our international students, and one of the roles I hold is I chair the international students for the whole of the UK, so 450,000 international students. And the international students are generation-long links. The General spoke about my mother. My mother went to university in Birmingham. My grandfather, her father was university in Birmingham. My father's father was a cadet at Sandhurst and graduated from the British Military Academy over here. I went to university. My children are at university over here. These are generation-long links that are built. At any one time, there are more world leaders educated at British universities, and it alternates. 1 year it's British, 1 year it's American. It's usually about 57, 58, 54 world leaders at any one time as we speak who've been educated at either of these 2 countries. That's how powerful that education is. We have the Chevening Scholars. There are over 60,000 of them around the world now, who are lifelong ambassadors for Britain and bridges between their countries and the UK. And of course, the biggest number of Chevening Scholars come from India. So education, culture, when you look at the media, look at films, cinema, British films, directors, actors always winning Oscars. You look at music, whether it's classical, whether it's rock. You look at professional services, lawyers, accountants. You look at the financial services. City of London is always number 1 or 2 in the world, along with New York as the number 1 financial center in the world. So you look at all these different things and you see a huge amount of soft power. The royal family, you could argue, our royal family, we love our queen. She is absolutely wonderful. She never puts a foot wrong, and she's unanimously respected by everyone in the UK. I mean, the royal family is a huge element of our soft power that the whole world is interested in. And the queen, they look up to her because of the person, not just the title, because of the individual that she is. And so that soft power, I think, combined with hard power, gives a country a lot of power. The soft power is not as powerful without the hard power. They go hand in hand. And India, similarly, if you look at India's potential of its soft power, whether it's the huge culture, look at the religions that have originated in India, whether it's Buddhism, whether it's Jainism, whether it's Hinduism, they all originated in India. They're global religions now. Look at the arts in India, the amazing centuries old, millennia old culture, art, history, music, let alone the Indian film industry, Bollywood, let alone all the other wonderful soft power that India has. And the key is putting it together. And the final message I leave with you before the Q&A is this. What works I've seen in this crisis, this unprecedented crisis, nothing like it anywhere in the world that any one of us has ever seen, where it's a supply shock, it's a demand shock, this COVID crisis. It reverberates through the whole supply chain. It reverberates globally. Everyone's affected by it. What has worked and what has not worked? What has not worked is centralized, top-down action. Whenever the UK government has tried to do something on its own, it's not worked. What has worked is collaboration. So, for example, we needed critical bed hospitals built at scale. We didn't have the capacity. We worried we'd run out of capacity. We had these pictures from Italy of patients in corridors, horrible, sad pictures of patients in corridors, the deaths in Italy. And we said, we can't be in that position. We've got to have the critical bed capacity. Meanwhile, China was building a huge hospital. You saw the pictures of the bulldozers, the films of the bulldozers. In days, China built a huge hospital. We said, only the Chinese can do that. Nonsense. when we put our mind to it in a collaborative manner. We got the National Health Service, the government, working with the armed forces, including the Gurkhas, working with the private sector, the Excel Centre, the biggest exhibition centre in London, working with the local university, the University of East London. All together, in 9 days, we created a 4,000-bed critical bed care capacity hospital in London, and we've replicated that around the country. And not once in the last 6 months have we ever had a problem with critical bed care capacity at all. That shows how powerful collaboration. Testing. The Germans were testing 100,000 people a day. In April, we were barely testing 10,000 people a day because the government was trying to do it through Public Health England and controlling it. It wasn't working. The government worked collaboratively with universities, with laboratories, with research centers, with the private sectors, with the pharmaceutical companies. Together, we now have a target of 10 million tests a day. We're not even doing 10,000 6 months ago, less than 6 months ago. 10 million tests a day will be taking place within a few months here in the UK. And finally, the vaccine. We're all holding out hope that there will be a vaccine. Well, the front runner in the race for the vaccine, is the Oxford University, where I'm proud to be a fellow of Kellogg College, as the General said, with AstraZeneca, the Swedish-British company headquartered at Cambridge, working closely with Cambridge University. And who's going to be making these vaccines? My fellow Parsi friends, Dr. Cyrus Poonawalla and his son Adar, the owners of the Serum Institute in Pune, the biggest vaccine manufacturers in the world, in India. So that is collaboration that is going to be so crucial looking ahead, that will save lives. And I hope that vaccine comes out very, very quickly. So there we are. And as the famous philosopher Camus said, that plagues are a great evil. But even in a time of plague, it allows people to rise above themselves. That's what we've done as a global community. We've risen above ourselves, doing things that were impossible, seen as impossible just months ago. We're doing them at scale around the world in a collaborative manner, and that's great. Thank you.
So, Your Excellency, Lordship, Mr. Karan Bilamuria, it was a fascinating lecture. You know, you have the Indian genes, sanskars, and the love for India, your motherland, where you were born, brought up. So you spoke from your heart, not just only from your intellectual plane. So we deeply appreciate. And also I want to thank you and your university, Birmingham University, for the wonderful collaboration we have now with our university, Amity University, and Professor Gurinder Singh, who is the Chief of our Internationalization, the Group Vice Chancellor. He speaks very high about your university, Birmingham, and we look forward to build a very strong partnership. Let me start the dialogue, the discussion. Today, India is a strong hard power. It has strong hard power as well as soft power. If you look at today, as you rightly said, even in technology, today we are able to not only nuclear power, we make missiles, Agni, Prithvi, Akash, Nag, Trishul, BrahMos, interceptor missile, anti-satellite missile, you name everything, the capability in missile. Similarly, in aeronautics, the light combat aircraft Tejas, we are making radar, sonars, torpedoes, electronic warfare, materials, CBR and defense technology, life support. So we have developed that hard power in terms of technology as well. And even in the COVID, you were able to see the DRDO developed technologies, which is coming in a big way to help the COVID patients. So I see on one side, not only the hard power in terms of the professional armed forces, but also the indigenous weapon systems developed by India. That's on one side. The second side is the trade. India is looking at $5 trillion economy, even though we have the setback right now due to COVID. But then we are looking at, we will come back, bounce back in terms of the trade, education. is a big soft power. Today we have 1,000 universities and 45,000 colleges. And this national education policy is really going to revolutionize and make India as a knowledge hub. So that is again a big soft power. So one side we are developing a hard power, and also the other side the soft power, including the technology diplomacy. We are launching the satellites from our launch platforms, the PSLV, and we are launching. So the technology diplomacy is also becoming a big soft power. And the national character and cultural, the ethos which we have, which we share with UK. And so these soft power, and then we have people like you, the people of Indian origin, who have not only the love and affection for our country, but my question is, are we harnessing this soft power? People like you, the lordship and the ministers who are sitting in the cabinet in UK, I just wanted to ignite the passion for the discussion in this way, that are we really harnessing this power? This is a big soft power, which is available today across the globe, not only in UK. So I just want to have your the reflections on this, that is India doing enough to harness this very great, powerful soft power which we have across the globe, which should be leveraged for India's development, and it should become the cumulative national power. Over to you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Saramurthy. That was tremendous, and you brought up so many important points. And if you look at the perception, it's very important. What is, when you look into a country, if you look at India as a brand, or the United Kingdom as a brand, and you look at how do people perceive that brand India, and if you look at the change that's taken place over the last few decades of how people perceive India, I mean, sadly, there's still a huge amount of poverty in India, but there's been a huge amount of poverty alleviation, of people being taken out of poverty. And earlier, the images were all about that. Now, the images are of a country going places, the things you've spoken about. And it started with the IT companies, and we must give them credit. The Wipros, the Infosys, the Tata consultancies of this world, they really put India on the map in terms of people seeing India in a different light. Now the world is seeing and appreciating more and more the huge capability of the Indian people, the intellectual powerhouse of the Indian people that has been unleashed, and also the entrepreneurial spirit of India. The India that I was brought up in as a child was a protected, insular, inward-looking country. The consumer was starved of choice. But since the liberalization in 1991, which really took off in about 2002 onwards, that is when the entrepreneurial spirit of India and capability of India has been unleashed. And the things you've spoken about have happened in a relatively short period of time. The satellite power that is taking place, well, now it is, talking about collaboration, my friend Sunil Mittal of Airtel is investing $500 million alongside the UK government, and they bought a satellite company to launch satellites for the benefit of India and the UK and globally. And that's an Indo-British partnership, but taking exactly what you've just spoken about. So I'm completely hear what you have to say. And with regard to the NRIs and harnessing the power, that's where I think the Pravasi Bharatiya Divas initiative by Prime Minister Vajpayee, when he was Prime Minister, was launched. I remember it so clearly 17 years ago. Very powerful in doing exactly, attempting to bring and embrace the NRI community, people of Indian origin around the world. And it worked very well. We've had initiatives such as a few years but it's a long time, it's over a decade since it's happened. The Indian government invited the parliamentarians of Indian origin to come to a visit and have meetings with Indian government, Indian parliamentarians, with ministers, with the Prime Minister. And I remember that was so fruitful, the interactions we had. And out of that meeting came the idea for a Prime Minister of India's Global Advisory Council, which I was a founding member of. So these are very valuable things, but we don't do enough of it. We should do more. And similarly, we should have Indian parliamentarians coming, and they do. And I've hosted several in Westminster myself. And that interaction is great. Another point I'd like to make, which is collaborative research. I was a member of the UK-India Roundtable, and we came up with this initiative called UKERI, the UK-India Research Initiative, which is now in phase 3. And it puts academics together from both countries, UK and India, working on a specific project, funded by both governments. We've had thousands of these projects, bringing thousands of academics together. Very powerful, and actually acting on this collaborative theme that I was talking about.
Amity University is also having a number of UKERI projects, and they will intensify. I used to work with DSTL, Defense Science Technology Laboratory, where the CBR and Defense, we used to have very strategic the R&D with them. Yes. So now the Amity University has its presence in London in UK, and thanks for your support for this university. We want to expand, deepen our relationship with you, with your University Birmingham, and which is one of the top universities in the world today. And so thank you very much. I think there will be many more questions. And before I hand over to Saurabh, is the Commonwealth power, now it's lying dormant, because we used to have many activities, blooming and very vibrant. Why is it dormant? Is that Commonwealth power need to be activated to realize its own objectives and goals?
In my view, the Commonwealth is a latent, unrealized organization. I mean, if you think about this breadth of the Commonwealth, you have the European Union, but it's a very powerful bloc, but it's concentrated, 500 million people in one part of the world. You have something like the Commonwealth. It's spread out from Canada to New Zealand, across the whole world, from Caribbean countries to African countries to Asian countries. I believe the Commonwealth can really work. It needs funding. And the country that can really power the Commonwealth ahead, of course, the UK is always there. It's India. If India wants to, it can take leadership of the Commonwealth. And India, and can you imagine the amazing friendship that lies in the Commonwealth? It's a totally voluntary organization. No one has to belong to it. People do it voluntarily. And it's got this lovely thread of English-speaking business, that English heritage, the way the legal systems, there's a lot of commonality of Commonwealth countries that we take for granted that give us that ability to talk to each other the same wavelength and work together. So I think it's a very, very powerful organization that is nowhere near utilized as much as it could be and should be. In India, I think could take true leadership in this.
Thank you, Lordship. General Gadio, would you like to continue the discussion? Saurabh?
Yes, Saurabh, I think Saurabh Mishra, Dr. Saurabh Mishra, you could kindly put across to the Lord all the questions which the student fraternity would like to, get his responses to that, please.
Saurabh sir, please unmute yourself. You are muted, sir.
Yeah, we can have the question, Saurabh.
Let me take over now. The first, the comment and question from Colonel Dargan, Professor Colonel Dargan, one of our veteran faculty over here in Amity University. The Indians always perceive UK products and services to be of very high quality. This is true whether in the retail sector or in higher education. For example, some UK retailers have successfully used the British flag to sell their products in India and establish their brand more effectively. Here, soft power projection has worked well. But in the higher education sector, UK soft power declined sharply when the rules around post-study work visas changed. So this led to the number of Indian students choosing to study in the UK plummeting from almost 23,000 to 12,000. Do you think UK should work much harder to make itself more attractive to the Indian market? Is it correct to say that UK not having an integrated relationship between the higher education sector and government is part of the problem? So your comments, Lordship.
Yes, this is thank you very much for those comments. And this is something I feel passionate about because at the UK India Roundtable, after at one of the meetings, I highlighted this post-study work visa being something very important. And we agreed to action it. I led the charge in Parliament. I got cross-party support in 2007. And in 2008, the government listened and they brought in the 2-year post-graduation work visa for all international students. I, of course, was doing it for Indian students, but it applied to all international students. It's a wonderful thing because I know as an international student here in the UK, it is expensive to study abroad. You have to pay for your fees, your living expenses. If you get a chance to work, you get a chance to earn some money to pay for your education, but you also get some work experience. You further build the links between the two countries. It's wonderful. You're contributing to the economy as well. So it's a win-win all round. It worked brilliantly. And then Theresa May was made Home Secretary. And in 2012, she removed it. And all the time she was Prime Minister, I tried very hard to get her to reinstate it, and she would not listen. The moment, and not just me, there were a lot, I chair the all-party parliamentary group, co-chair of international students as well. Then many of us were asking the government, please change this rule, bring back the post-study work visa. And we surveyed Indian students, and they said the number one reason they did not choose the UK as their number one choice was the lack of post-study work opportunities, compared with Canada, Australia, and even America at that time. Soon as Theresa May left as Prime Minister, Boris Johnson came in, and we have now reintroduced the 2-year postgraduate work visa. And you can see the immediate impact on the number of Indian students, for example, has rocketed. And I think it's an excellent initiative, and we've brought it back in now.
Thank you so much. Incidentally, Colonel Dargan has worked under your father in his regiment.
Well,
and now another question from Dr. Siddharth.
Thank you.
What are your thoughts on the Indian government's utilization of the ICCs as opposed to their Chinese counterparts, particularly the Confucius Institutes? Your comments, Lordship.
So the Indian government's use of, could you spell it out, please? What are we asking about?
Utilization of ICC. ICCs as opposed to their Chinese counterparts, particularly Confucius Institutes.
The ICCs, I'm sorry, what does the acronym stand for?
I really won't know, Siddharth.
Check from the student, Siddharth. Siddharth said it was, we just have to exemplify, just try to clarify as to what the acronym ICC stands for, please.
Anyway, we move on to the next one, Pratik. In the meantime,
Yes.
I think we move on. India being an attractive proposition for UK businesses, exploring alternative to China, what advice can you give to budding entrepreneurs at our university, Amity University? And can we participate in some joint projects under your network or other?
And this is a question about entrepreneurship.
Yes.
Yes.
And again, the potential here is huge. So in the UK, we have a global entrepreneur program. So if there are any entrepreneurs from around the world who have good entrepreneur ideas that they want to come and try and execute in the UK, we have a program that helps them do that, that mentors, that gives access to finance, and you're guided through the whole process. We have international student entrepreneur competitions, because we found a lot of our entrepreneurs in the UK are originally international students. I mean, if you look at the big success stories, Google, the founders were international students. You can look at it around the world. I came up with the idea for Cobra Beer while I was a student at Cambridge. So we need to harness the entrepreneurial spirit of students. And I think in India itself, the opportunities are huge. Things that didn't exist for me, crowdfunding, the ability to raise finance now in so many different ways, the entrepreneur networks that exist in countries and around the world, like TIE, the Indus Entrepreneurs, a great organization, TIE, that is very big in India, and that I'm a founding charter member of over here in the UK, which has a mentoring scheme as well to help entrepreneurs. So I'd urge you to look up TIE.
Thank you so much. And Ms. Arshita wants to know, what is the role of India as a part of non-aligned movement in NAM country, and how is NAM relevant now, and what is the difference between diversity and inclusion?
So, thank you. Well, you see now the whole non-aligned movement is a term, is an attitude. However, if you look at the reality, more and more we are working in collaboration and partnership. Now, for example, I believe very, very strongly that India should have a permanent seat in the UN Security Council. It doesn't at the moment, and it definitely deserves to have one. So whether it's a UN or whether it's the G7, which India is not a member of, but the G20, India is a member of the G20. Now, when you're saying you're a member of the G20, you're doing it as an individual country, but you're trying to work collaboratively as well. And I think the world is about partnerships, and it is about collaborations. And that's happening more and more. Even if you look at our defense forces, the general would probably say from his experience, look at the number of joint exercises that now take place between the UK and India, for example, where we trust each other. We collaborate together, even in what used to be very sensitive areas. We're open. And the word trust, by the way, this is a very important word. Trust, one of my Harvard Business School professors, Frances Fry, just recently gave us an online lecture on trust. And she said, to engender trust, it's a triangle. You've got to have three things. First, you've got to be authentic. For people to trust you, are you authentic? Because people will see through you if you're not authentic. Secondly, you've got to have the logic aspect. Do you have the capability? Are you professional? Will people trust that you can actually deliver the goods and perform? And the third element of trust is the actual empathy. Are you not in it for yourself? You're in it for the other person. So once you can generate those three things, authenticity, logic, capability, and empathy, you can engender trust. And I think between the UK and India, there is huge trust.
Thank you, Lordship Billy Moria. There is another question. India, even though has assumed the regional and global power position today, why is it not able to get a position in UN Security Council, a permanent membership?
This is just a matter of time, in my view. We're working on it, and it's bound to happen. The UK is 100% behind it, and it's only a matter of time. And I didn't answer the question about diversity and inclusion. Diversity, just to reiterate, is genuinely having diversity of mindset, of thought, of background, of cultures, of people, of races, of ethnicities, of religions. And you can have that diversity, and I say India has got a huge advantage in the world of having the most diverse country in the world. And that gives, I think, makes it a very powerful asset. But diversity, whether it's in a company or anywhere else, is only really powerful if you also make all these diverse people included. And so you've got to have an inclusive environment. So in a company, you can tick the boxes saying, I've got people of all these different backgrounds and ethnicities, but if you do not give them the opportunity to flourish and have an inclusive environment, then you're not making the most of the diversity. So they go hand in hand, but they're two distinct things, diversity and inclusion.
Thank you, Your Lordship.
Lordship.
We like to know that how would you like to see the India-UK strategic partnership over the next 10 years? You know, both are democracies, as you rightly said. One is a large democracy, India, and also a very strong democracy, UK. How would you like to place this milestones over the next decade in terms of a strong strategic partnership of these two very good democracies?
And I think that when I would sit around that table at the UK-India roundtable with both high commissioners of countries, when you'd have the vice chancellors of universities at the table, senior journalists, senior business people, people from the cultural arena, so the head of the Nehru Centre in the UK, which is the cultural arm of the Indian High Commission, would be there. Gopal Gandhi, Mahatma Gandhi's grandson is a former head of the Nehru Center in India. People like him around the table, the head of the British Council, Britain's cultural and educational arm in India, around the table. So you're bringing together culture, academics, journalism, science, business, foreign policy, all together. And you then realize at every level you can have these collaborations and partnerships. So whether it's defense, whether it's in manufacturing terms, the Make in India, we've got so much capability in the UK we can partner with, whether it's technology that you spoke of, Doctor, there's so many, at every level we need to form strong partnerships that we work closer together in complete trust and to each other's mutual benefit. And it's so powerful, and we've got a unique ability to do that more than any other country. And I think we need to make much more of it. And the more interaction, the better. The more our students study in each other's countries, the more our academics work in each other's countries. And another key aspect to it is the common denominator is research and development and innovation. That is what makes a country really stand out. And we in the UK spend 1.7% of our GDP on R&D and innovation, whereas countries like Germany and America spend 2.8%, let alone a country like Israel spends 4% of GDP on R&D and innovation. In the UK, if we just spend 1% more per year, that's 20 billion pounds more per year. Can you imagine how much more? And that R&D and innovation takes place in universities and takes place in business. The key is to bring the two together. So the CBI, we have universities as members, and I just chaired a meeting with university vice chancellors and the head of the London School of Economics, for example, Dame Manoush Shafiq, who's going to become a baroness in the House of Lords now. She was one of the speakers, and something struck me. I said, here we are, the biggest business organization in the UK, and we've got the top universities in the country as members of the CBI, and here I've got a fantastic meeting with university leaders. But as university leaders meeting on their own, where are the business people around the table? We need to have them meeting together. That's going to be the power. That's what we've got to do together in our own countries and together in both countries.
Rightly said. And now with regard to India emerging as a knowledge superpower, today you see we are third in the publication, scientific publication. We are ninth in the patents and IPRs. But in innovation index, we are now 48. So we have just moved four stages up, 48. But then we are now trying to bind this academia industry together to make that innovation index happening, rising it to top 10 or so. And now in this new national education policy being promulgated, and with our Honorable Prime Minister Shri Narendra Modi ji really giving a new paradigm in terms of higher education and the primary and secondary education, Amity contributing in a big way, having emerged as a very strong global brand with 11 universities in India, 17 campuses abroad, about 30 schools all over the globe. And with this power, now how do we interact with, we are collaborating with UK universities, including Birmingham. And how would you see that there is a tremendous scope for our interaction between Amity University and the University of Birmingham and the UK institutions as well? So can you, as a Chancellor, how would you like to reflect on how do we strengthen this, deepen the relationship between our academia in Amity and with your group in research, innovation, student exchange, and with new education policy, enabling you to put campuses in India and similarly our campuses in the other countries, which is already happening. So how would you like to see
Silvamurthy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please, Gurinder, yes. Go ahead.
Dr. Silvamurthy, can I ask a question?
Yeah, please go ahead. Please go. He is Professor Gurinder Singh, our group vice chancellor. You might have met him already. And he is the one who is taking Amity to the globe and bringing globe to the Amity. And over to you, Gurinder. Maybe we need to elaborate on this.
Thank you.
Lord Karan Bilanoria, this is a privilege of Amity University that you have been very kindly accepted our invitation and you are on this webinar. And Dr. Chauhan, who's a great visionary and our founder president, he was just talking to us and he was saying that he has never seen a speaker of your stature. And it is an unprecedented and the way you have been able to speak to our hundreds of deans, hundreds of faculty members and students, all of them, they are really and truly mesmerized. At Amity, we truly believe to have a great partnership with University of Birmingham. A lot of our students, they have gone on the computer science program, on the management program to your university. From your university, large number of researchers have come to our conferences, and we look forward to further strengthen our relationship for all times to come. But as our founder was saying, that your visionary lecture and your words of wisdom have opened a new dimension for all of us. And from the bottom of heart, on behalf of for 175,000 Amitians, and on behalf of our Chancellor and behalf of our founder president, we are really privileged to listen to your visionary thoughts. Thank you very much.
Professor, thank you for your very kind words. They mean a lot to me, and I'm very grateful. Thank you very much. And to answer the earlier question from Dr. Salmurthy as well, that we're looking forward to really enhancing this relationship. There is so much more we can do together, and I'm looking forward to continuing to build the partnership. And a lot of it is actually the collaborative research, the more collaborative research projects we can do together. If I give you a, we've done research, for example, with another university in Punjab, and when we measured the field-weighted index, right, the impact, and I'm just using rough figures here, please don't hold me to them. When we at Birmingham do our individual research, let's say our figure is 2.5. When this university in Punjab was doing individual research, let's say it was 2.6 or 1.6, 1.5, 1.6, Birmingham's 2.4, 2.5. When we did collaborative research, the field-weighted impact went up to over 5. Mm-hmm. Can you imagine? Literally multifold. And we then compared it with Harvard. So when Birmingham, let's say our figure is 2.5, Harvard's, let's say 2.8, 2.9, we did collaborative research at Harvard, it was also above 5. So the collaborative research with the university in Punjab was as powerful as collaborative research with the University of Harvard. And the key to it was the collaboration. And that increases your field-weighted impact enormously. So I would recommend we do more and more research together, more and more academic interchange, more and more student interchange. And I look forward to working with all of you looking ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much.
May I make thank you. And I've got to go on to another live event in a few minutes.
Right, right.
And I wanted to make one final remark, if I may, before we conclude. But was there anything else that you wanted to? Was there anything else that you wanted to say now before I do that?
No, we will just wanted to only intensify our collaboration in research as well, because it's a research and innovation-driven university. And as you rightly said, that we will build a strong partnership for synergy, which will again amplify the potentials between the Birmingham University and Amity group of universities. Over to you, Gary, you wanted to say something.
Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Your Lordship, I was just going through a little bit of Internet of Things, and I was so heartened to see that United Kingdom, as per 2018 Soft Power 30 Index, has been listed in those 30 countries as the first. United Kingdom is first, France is second, Germany is third, and United States of America is fourth. And this has been published, Your Excellency, by the United Kingdom-based consultancy firm Portland and University Southern California, that is Center on Public Diplomacy. Now, that certainly is a very phenomenal, I think, escalatory matrix in as far as United Kingdom is concerned for soft power. We too are trying our level best by overtures and parleys and trying to promote our soft power through our cultural diplomacy. As far as hard power is concerned, you've seen India has taken a quantum jump in as far as trying to enhance its defense and operational preparedness. We are very happy that the present status and high threshold of operational readiness, preparedness, and effectiveness is something which is highly enviable. I would like to thank Your Lordship today for being very articulate in perspective. I think you have covered the entire canvas in a manner which I will only say that you have been able to do tremendous amount of justice. It has not only been phenomenal, you've been able to convey your viewpoints in a very captivating manner, I think, to the audience today, and as all the student fraternity and the faculty of the Amity Institute of Defense Strategic Studies, the Institute of Social Studies, the Institute of International Studies, Public Policy and Governance. I think all of us are quite enthralled by your very courses, not only your approach in which you have conveyed in a ambitious manner, that is being humble and ambitious. These words we took from you when you came to Staff College. Thank you very much. We are going to carry on and pick up the thread from here, Your Lordship, and we are now going to promote what is called the Agreement of Understanding after the Memorandum of Understanding was promoted by Professor Dr. Gurinderji because of his initiative at Amity. He has again been one of the stalwarts and a titan, I should call, very iconic in his approach. He is very contemporary in his forward-looking thought process and outlook. And we are going to promote now, that is through the departments with the Defense and Strategic Studies and International Relations and Public Policy and Governance, an agreement of understanding so that this exchange program is further given leverage. So thank you very much for your kind indulgence. I'm personally very grateful that whenever you give your consent, it is absolutely done with promptitude. Thank you very much, Your Lordship.
Now the last word is from you, Your Lordship.
Well, thank you.
Please.
Thank you very much, General. Thank you very much, Dr. Salvamurthy, Professor Gurinder. Thank you to all of you. I mean, it's been a real privilege for me and also Professor Jyotsna as well. Really, I've just enjoyed this interaction so much. And quite frankly, I would love this to carry on for much more time. So thank you. I look forward to future collaborations. And if I may, I just conclude with one of my favorite sayings of Mahatma Gandhi. And that is, it was in fact told to me by my younger son when he was 17 years old. He told me once when I was dropping into school, he told me this saying. And I said, where did you get this saying from? He said, Dad, Mahatma Gandhi, of course. And the saying is, live as if you're going to die tomorrow. Learn as if you're going to live forever. And that's really what it's all about. It's about non-stop curiosity and wanting to learn more and learn from each other. And that's what we've all done today. And I've learned so much from this wonderful session. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And thank you for the warm welcome you've given me.
So with that note, viewers, thank you very much for joining us on this wonderful topic on deliberations and hard and soft power, the post-COVID world, UK and India partnership. And thank you, Chancellor, and also the Lord, Karan Bilimoria, for this wonderful webinar. We will continue our dialogue, and thank you very much. Thanks for everyone who joined us in this webinar. Thank you.
Thank you very much. All the very best. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Bye-bye. Thank you very much.
Good day.